Coming live from the surf shop, right? Okay, I had done the previous video, and I know not a lot of people have watched it. This one won't be as long, and I don't know that you need to watch one to understand the other one. The main thing I was kind of differentiating between in the previous was, you know, the day trippers and that mentality versus the vacationers. This one I would say is geared a little bit more toward actual vacationers than just day trippers. But being near Los Angeles or in, you know, the giant metropolitan area, people are often trying to find other more day trip things to do. So some of these can still fall in that category, although I won't be talking about some of the more, well, I mean, I have to mention them, but not in depth. Like Ojai, I think Ojai has like a mission that I've walked under the thing, but it's not like a same kind of big destination as the Santa Barbara one. And the one that hardly anybody talks about that I do have photos of is the Solvang one, or right past Solvang city limits. I don't know exactly where the line is there. And of course, the one I used to go to as a child that I don't have any photos, because it's another one of those places I haven't been to in a long time, is Capistrano. And there are others. And there's places that have a mission street, but I don't know where the actual mission is, so I've probably driven by it, not been to it. Santa Cruz and Riverside and some of the San Gabriel, of course. And I know I've been around some of them, so I'm not like the tour guide that knows all the missions and all that. But what I wanted to mention was some people will have a theme, because I touched on this in the last video. So if your theme is like old courthouses, then you want to see all the old courthouses in, you know, Sacramento and Tulare or wherever they happen to be. And some people want to see the ghost towns. And again, I've only been to a smattering of stuff that's ghost town-ish more than I've been to actual ghost towns. And I have been to Calico, but I don't have the photo in my Facebook from years ago. I went through and scrolled, and I'll add, this is kind of an excuse for me to do a photo dump too, because as I mentioned in the previous video, I like to do art stuff. And so if you're a fellow painter or whatever, you might be able to use some of these as reference photos. I've already attempted at least one painting from my photos from the Bodie batch, and I'm not going to load every single photo that I've ever taken, but I do have other ones of SUPERBLOOM that I'll get to probably later in the week. But I have so many of these other ones. It takes a while to load things on YouTube, not like Facebook where you can kind of do it all in one bam and you're done. Here you can only do five at a time the most, so it takes a bit longer, especially if I want to annotate each one. So bear with me. But I'm rushing this video kind of so I can do the photo dump this same day, at least some of it, for people who are more interested in these destinations than the other ones. But some of these destinations are things that you can kind of do in one loop. Like if you wanted to do Mormon rocks and Vasquez rocks, you can, because it's like it's the road from used to be Valencia, now it's Santa Clarita. So I still call it Valencia most of the time. But yeah, if you go from Santa Clarita up to the 138, I think it, or there's another route you could take from Castaic or whatever that goes by the Poppy Reserve, which is also 138, but it's a different exit. you could still hit Mormon Rocks, which is right by I-15, the interstate near above Glen Helen and below Hesperia and Victorville, right? Okay. So you could do that. You might be sitting in a bit of traffic as you went through, I don't know, Little Rock and down Devore and all that. I've been stuck in pretty bad traffic trying to go up the 15 more often than down it, because you got all the Victorville people, but then you have all the Vegas people, and you have all the trucks, that sort of thing. So depending on the time of the day and then what day it is, the week, and and that can be a long loop. Maybe it's faster to just go the 210 to the 15 and not go through the desert and go up the 5 to the Newhall Pass or whatever. Don't know. But anyway, in the middle of that, though, my other photos is Devil's Punchbowl, which is by Little Rock and before Llano, I believe. Now that area did burn about 3 years ago, I think it was. And so I don't know what they've rebuilt. I don't know what they've redone. I took a lot of pictures of trees. I'm not going to include all of those because I thought some of the trees were interesting, but not like, for my own personal geekydom, not, scenic per se in the same way. But that was like more of a hiking spot, but there was a flooded basin at the bottom, so I don't know if you can fish there or not, or if it's still even like that. Again, some of these places I haven't been to in a few years. Calico Ghost Town, like I said, I don't have any pictures, but I do have Bodie pictures. I'm skipping, like I don't have a lot of pictures. I don't take at these places because you can get a postcard that's better of the exact same shot you're going to get. They're not going to have all the cars in the way or the people walking through, or so I used to collect postcards almost every time I went anywhere, and I kind of stopped doing that too because they're in a bag in a box in the closet with the Calico photos and that kind of thing. So yeah, I do have kind of a nice, because you spend $5 and you get a decent little stack, but you don't look at them as much as you think over as the years progress. I look at them less and less, but yeah, so if you're on your way to Reno, then going to Mono Lake and Bodie, isn't such a, maybe it's more of an imposition if you're super in a hurry, but it's less of an imposition if you're just having a long drive and need to stretch your legs and you're willing to pay the extra money to, have lunch there or whatever. And of course, there's a guided tour at a lot of places like that I usually don't pay to do it. I'm usually just kind of, I was younger, so I was wandering around looking for the woman of my dreams, right? Who never shows up in the ghost town at noon. Oddly enough, it's usually families with children. They may or may not be older than I was, or retired people who are finally seeing all the stuff that they wanted to see in their RV, that kind of thing. Not saying that's bad, just, depends on your age, what appeal it's going. I assume if you're 23 and watching this, maybe you're curious, maybe you're just having a lark. I don't know. The Tehachapi, I guess I can honorable mention that. There's like a historical little loop thing that I drive by a couple times a year. And we camped there once when I was, 13, I think. And all I remember was the coyotes really sounded like infants that had been abandoned out in the scrubs somewhere. And we couldn't get over how close they sounded. But where exactly that was, how far off the highway, I don't know. This is one of those instances where I keep wanting to say interstate, but that's not actually the interstate. That would be junction 58, I think. I know them all, but I forget the numbers, so bear with me. But there's only one highway that goes through Tehachapi, so you're not going to get lost. It goes to Barstow and it goes to Bakersfield, right? And Calico is past Barstow, toward Vegas, whereas Bodie again is 395 past the Yosemite cutoff and before Nevada and Carson City, obviously. There was it I think it was Carson City where we stopped briefly. There's also those other little spots, Lone Pine, Big Pine. I think it was Lone Pine where they did the Bonanza stuff. The one cafe is all Bonanza. So you're on your way to the ghost town. You can stop and see Cowboy TV location, I guess. And then Bishop, of course. Bishop is farther south than I kind of thought it was. So the one time we were going to go there, it was still like 92 degrees or something, and we decided not to go there. That's how we ended up at Devil's Punchbowl, which wasn't any cooler, but I don't know, suited the mood better for the day or whatever the deal was. I was traveling and not alone, and so somebody else had this idea that everywhere we were going to go, there was going to be lots of fishing. I'm not a fishing person, so I guess Bishop might be better for that. That was why Bishop was scheduled, but we didn't really stop at Bishop. Maybe we stopped for gas. I don't remember. But anyway, yeah, so it's not completely nothing up the 395. And when you get to, but it's not until you get to Big Pine that you actually get the Ponderosa pines or whatever, and actual trees. It's pretty sparse before that. Bodie, there's no trees. It's really sparse. It's on the California side still, though, and there's two roads that kind of go. I think you can loop through Nevada on the one road, and I took that once with a friend because we were told there would be no traffic, and it turned out there was a rain or a hailstorm and army trucks constantly, and his car was definitely not geared toward that road. He was very unhappy with that decision for personal reasons, that we would have been better off backtracking because he didn't want to, on his little tires, be trying to navigate rain and army trucks or whatever, but we lived. But we did not stop at Bodie that time. There's a side road that we could have cut in. He was like, oh no, I'm not doing any. I don't know if it was a dirt road or not, but I'm pretty sure it was at the time. So we came into Bodie from the other side. So you'll see the long line of cars in my photo is what I was leading up to with that. That wasn't just a pointless story. Whereas if we had gone in the side entrance, maybe there would have been less of a line, or maybe you can't get in that way. Don't know, because we didn't try. But we did come down from Reno again through whatever that one little town is, and by an army base, and got to sit in army traffic. Okay. Yeah, again, whether or not the Punchbowl is hikeable again now, I don't know. Tehachapi, I'm sure there's hiking spots and stuff near there. Most of it is kind of farm land and cow pastures. I haven't seen any really good places to pull off and take photos. Same with the Mormon Rocks. There's a big open giant parking lot that's right there. It's really easy. Vasquez Rocks, I haven't stopped at the front door. I've only been to where I think is the back door, and I have two photos of that. There's kind of a campground not on the highway. It's on the canyon road, where everybody drives like a crazy person. But it's right before the canyon really begins. So you're maybe 20 minutes from Magic Mountain. And there's a parking thing there, but I don't know if that canyon road, Soledad or whichever one it is, I don't know. I don't know if that one goes to the actual place where you could park and hike. I don't know. Because I haven't really, I've only just kind of driven by it a few times. On the freeway, I haven't tried to get to it from the backside, but there is an exit, I think, from the freeway that might be the better one to take. So my photos of that are just off the internet because, of all things, Facebook was hyping this spot to me as another place where they used to film TV shows. So you'll recognize it from apparently Star Trek, and which I thought Star Trek was Mormon rocks, maybe it was both, but Star Trek, Blazing Saddles, and Monty Python's Holy Grail, to name at least 3. So that's more than Bonanza, right? Bonanza just has the one lone pine. Where I don't know if there's still actually a lone pine there or not. There might be less, there might be more, not sure. Might be false advertising. But again, like I was in the previous video, I kind of wanted to say, you know, I don't know if there's people who like fly to Sacramento and back in one day and like try to turn, you know, a business trip into a holiday. But again, it's not technically a day tripper, because if you're taking a flight, you're typically pre-planning that flight, not on the spur of the moment, spontaneous on a Sunday. I woke up and decided I was going to fly to Sacramento. Like, I'm not doing that right now. I don't know who's doing that right now. So again, I'm not really familiar with that whole area anyway. It's pretty big and there's a lot of stuff. So I'm focused more right now in, like I said, what's kind of within drive of Los Angeles. But if you're in Sacramento and you're interested in this kind of stuff, it wasn't too long of a drive to get to Sacramento. I think I was there in about 6 hours ish. And it's a straight shot either down 5 or 99, so there's that. But if you wanted to go through Tahoe or whatever I-80 goes through, or even the Yosemite cutoff and take 395 south, you could do that. Or you could go all the way to Reno and take 395 south, where if there's a different cutoff to do that, that makes Reno seem more like a better starting place for some reason. Don't know. Again, not my area. I've only been through there a couple times. And I'm not including Reno and Las Vegas in the photos or any of that because they're cities. But obviously, again, if that's your kind of destination and this is your kind of sidebar, then, you know, you have to kind of weigh how much time you want to spend at each. Personally, I'd probably rather be at Bodie Ghost Town longer than I'd rather be at Reno. But, you know, I'm also sure that the ghost town closes at dusk or whatever, and Reno doesn't. So you're more likely to find a place to stay in Big Pine or some other urban center. What was I saying here? Out of Santa. Yeah, I don't know if you're flying out of Santa Barbara or Ontario. Maybe there's less traffic than spending half the day hanging out at LAX and sitting in that traffic. Yada, yada, yada. So let's see. Yeah, I'm not talking about those today. Ojai, Santa Barbara. Like I said, Santa Barbara, yeah, the mission. I don't have any photos of the Santa Barbara mission. San Luis Obispo. I'm not, yeah, I don't want to talk about the coast again that much either. And then there's Pismo Beach. Pismo Beach is a small little kind of thing, but that's not the main attraction. The town is just there. Most people go there to ride dune buggies and stuff. And you probably already know that. Solvang. I do have a bunch of Solvang pictures, and I don't know if I should talk about it separately or include it here. I guess I'll include it here a little bit in case I decide to just throw some pictures in there. And then maybe I'll talk about it separately. But it's not really a beach town. So, but it's, again, it's not necessarily the place you're going to for the mission specifically. More people are going there for the little quaint architecture and the like Danish vibe, or, you know, and there's a little Viking museum or whatever. Most of those quaint architecture places are bed and breakfasts, though. They kind of expect you to spend a night or two. They, you know, they don't necessarily want to cater to the day trippers as much, but you can still do it pretty easily without too bad of traffic through Goleta and Santa Barbara. Now, Goleta is, of course, where the actual university is. So at different times of year, maybe that's more impacted than some other coastal spots that kind of empty out come September-ish. You know, most of the kids are back in school. You think it's off season, but there's still a college here. So I don't know how much that improves. And it's also the 101, which is not an interstate, but it is still a freeway that goes through 3 states. So it's going to be a more heavily trafficked highway than some of these other ones for, again, regular trucks and regular commuter traffic and regular just... I felt like going to San Luis Obispo today, even though, you know, whatever. It's not a beach trip or however that works out. But there is like an extra bit of distance added in, so it does take a little bit longer than Santa Barbara. You have to factor that in, that then it's going to take even longer getting back. So when I got there, it was like super fast, and the weather wasn't great in the morning. And then when it started to kind of get better in the afternoon, I had to already leave. So, and I still got stuck in traffic because now it's 5 o'clock in Santa Barbara, and it's not going to get dark immediately because it was probably March or April. It was springtime enough. That it was nice and cool down there, cooler, but also, or up there, I should say. Blah, blah, blah. Now, the other thing that's next to it when you first get off the freeway, if you're a big fan of the movie Sideways, is the hitching post and that other stuff all in that Buellton area. I didn't stop and get any photos of that because there's already a bunch of photos of that all over the internet. And there was one great windmill there that I didn't notice until it was too late. And so if you're more astute when you first get off the freeway, you might want to get a picture of that windmill. But the windmills, there's like 8 of them or something. I only really got pictures of 2 or whatever. Maybe there's slightly less. I don't know. Maybe there's more and I didn't remember to notice them or something. But anyway, past that, you're basically in farmland again. I walked down the road to get a photo of the, whatever it was, some little windmill past the mission or something. And there was, at the time, road construction and the light was blocked off and there was a huge line of cars. So it was taking forever. But everybody and his brother was turning left on Santa Ynez Road or whatever. So whatever's over there was the main attraction that I missed. So perhaps that's the wineries tour if I wanted to do a separate. But I've never been to Napa. I haven't been to, technically I've been near Bonnie Doon, but I haven't been to the actual Bonnie Doon. I haven't been to Temecula in years. Yeah, Temecula and Fallbrook, and there's a whole bunch. Ontario used to be more of a wineries kind of place. You could watch the airplanes land and go the Guasti region and all that. So that could be a separate video that I'm not going to do. Somebody else can run with that one because either you're super interested in wine or you're not. And of course, Santa Barbara, that whole area is kind of known, and farther up, what, Calistoga, and I know all the names, but I haven't been to all the spots. Davis, which of course is closer to Sacramento again. So from Sacramento, you've already been there. And some of them might have missions right there too. Okay, but probably not ghost towns. And I went by, but I didn't go to Tombstone. How much of that is still ghost town, I don't know, but obviously that's way southern Arizona. Excuse me, not my usual route at all. So yeah, like I said, this is kind of an excuse to show a bunch of photos. And so if anybody has any questions about the photos, you can leave the comments at the specific photos, or you can leave comments under the video, whether you've seen the photos or not, or whatever. And if you thought I didn't explain something well enough, I can try and clarify it for you. But I think that's most of it. Now, the SUPERBLOOM that like I said, I was going to do a separate video about that, but I'm not sure. If I do, it would make more sense to do it next February or March when it's about to happen, when people might be interested, rather than finding it here on accident. So I'll talk about it anyway, just like I did some of the other stuff. And again, Yosemite and Mono Lake and some of those other things, that can be a separate video for sure. The SUPERBLOOM, the one in Elsinore that I have not been to, I don't have any photos of that. They were really having troubles the last couple of years with people just trampling everything. And so they were really trying to shut it down to day trippers and tourists almost entirely. And I don't know if they sell any merch. I think I mentioned that somewhere. My photo comments of the previous one, yeah, last night or whenever. I'll do more photo comments soon enough. The Antelope Valley one does have a little visitor center and a gift shop. I don't know how much year-round that's open. It's probably only open for like a month and a half at the most. I don't know how long they staff it, and it's probably mostly volunteer or all volunteer for all I know. The T-shirts sell out pretty quickly in most of the adult sizes from what I could see. There was a Roadrunner one I think I really wanted, and it was still only available in like small or medium, and I had to pass it by. And then there was a rattlesnake one and some other one, and so I posted the photo already of the one I got, which was the quail, which was the second best design at the time. How often they change their designs, don't know. They probably have one that's of jackrabbits or something. Yeah, in future, see, related to this, I could have mentioned the Winchester House in San Jose, but I haven't actually been there. I keep meaning to go there, and I keep not going there. And then on the coast is the Hearst Castle in Windsor. The poppy bloom can be difficult to pin down because the weather in the high desert is difficult to pin down. It's, you'd think it's the desert, it's just going to be hot, but that's not actually the high desert. The high desert actually gets colder than LA Basin area, and you can actually get snow and you can get icy roads pretty often. And you get what nobody tells you on the news very much or enough or mention is the wind is absolutely terrible. If you've been to Las Vegas, it's the same thing. It's just terrible wind and won't usually rain, but if it does rain, you can get flash flooding pretty quickly or easily, but not typically as bad as, what we're talking about in Texas right now, that kind of thing, because you just don't get as much rain. You'll get a lot of rain at once, but then it kind of ends usually sooner than you think it will, and so it's usually not terrible, but it can still be enough water to wash your car into a ditch, and then you'll be really unhappy. The poppies, though, being flowers and therefore subject to the weather, if you get a decent amount of rain in the winter, you get a lot more of them, but the window to see them in that glory is kind of small because usually you get a heat wave already in March or April. Part of the reason why when I'm going through Tehachapi, it's kind of rare to see everything still green at that time of the year. It's usually already yellow if you've had a heat wave in April. So the poppies might already be withering and wilting. So the one year I got the super bloom for sure. And I got a lot of pictures. The pictures, I can't load those yet. I haven't copied them all yet. The pictures I'm loading today, if I get to them, is going to be from 2 years ago, which was a kind of a mild year. And I got there early in the morning to not be too hot, which I beat the crowd, but I also beat the flowers because they weren't open yet. So when everybody started showing up, the flowers kind of started opening, and I was already sick of walking around and leaving and was like, well, I already have 60 photos from the last time I was here, so I'm not that worried about it. I thought they were interesting enough photos without being as much orange as you would expect or hope or like or whatever. And I already posted one photo that it wasn't my camera, but it was definitely the super bloom year. And so you can see all the orange there already anyway. If I go, it's the next row below pass with care to the one where I'm standing by the lake, and it's kind of a grainy photo though. It's not one of mine. I don't know where it came from, but yeah, that's kind of what some of it looks like when it's orange, and I'm pretty sure that's from the super bloom. Anyway, So yeah, it's kind of tricky. They don't necessarily, again, on the, the news, they don't necessarily update you exactly when it's kind of the best time to hit it, to see it happening. I've been, like I said, kind of fortunate, because if I wanted to stay longer or go back again, I could have, and probably got more pictures of more flowers. Again, like I said, that trip. But that was not a super bloom, and the window is definitely shorter, and I only ended up going the one time and still took, I don't know, 20 pictures or something. And so however many I put here, let's see. 13. I might be putting 13. So at least 10, but not all of them will be super duper flowers of that batch. And so however long that takes. And so, yes, so yeah, again, there's like two ways you can kind of get to that. You can go up the 14 highway to the side streets and maybe figure it out. Or there's the Grapevine Interstate 5 exit, which is just a really long, straight, flat road for most of it. And don't miss that turn. But they think there might be two turns. I think if you miss the first turn, there's still a second turn. But you definitely, at the second time I went, I definitely drove around on the wrong streets. I thought I was too far up, and I thought I was too far down, and it turns out I was too far up, and I ended up having to go back down. And then I still hit it from the top instead of the bottom where the entrance gate is. The top, there's a sign, and then the side road that you loop around the whole thing before you get to the gate. So if you go to the gate, there's usually a long line of cars, same as the Bodie line of cars and the other lines of cars. And if it's a super bloom, the parking spots are usually already pretty much taken unless you got there super early. I think we got there at like 10 a.m. or something the one time. And the other time I did get there earlier. Like I said, I wanted to beat everybody. And that time I still didn't park in the parking lot, though. I parked on the street and walked up and saved the $15 or whatever it was. There was hardly anybody there. I could have breezed right up into the parking lot, but I was like, I'm hiking anyway. It doesn't matter. So I just did that. But yeah, they have a restroom. They have a visitor center, like I said. And it doesn't go as far as you think it will. The trail kind of ends right where it looks like it's going to go through. There's kind of a wooden deck. I didn't see the wooden deck the first time because I was, again, not alone that time. So I was kind of at the whim and the will of other people. Like, we'll meet you over here. We're going over here. And I went up all the hills and they went up none. They just kind of stuck around the thing and whatever that little area was by the visitors. But there was a second side way that takes you all the way back past what I drove around the second time. So it was like, okay, well, I didn't walk all of that because I just drove past it. So I kind of got the idea. And then on the other side, there's if you're going out through the side streets and stuff, there's a fruit stand kind of area where we did stop and buy some cashews or whatever it was. And so that kind of thing. Okay, so I've talked for longer than I thought I would, but hopefully that was fairly comprehensive for these kind of attractions. Again, comments, leave your questions and I'll try and answer as best as I can. And happy Sunday.